David Draymond, nice to have you here.
Good to be had.
Good to be...
Did I confuse you there?
A little bit, actually.
It's a pleasure to be here with everyone. How's that? Is that more clear?
I heard somewhere that you're not that fond of this kind of weather, right?
I hate the cold.
You hate the cold? Totally, like, you don't go ski or anything, or...
No. No, give me water skiing. Sure. Jet skiing. Snow skiing? Not a fan. But that doesn't mean I'm judging anybody who loves it. I don't want to offend anybody in this world anymore. It's just, you know, if you love snow skiing, God bless you.
No snowballs to live here now either. So.
Son. You even moved to Austin, right? Or
I did, yes.
how's that? Because you was born in Chicago, or?
Well, I was born in Brooklyn, New York, actually, in Flatbush. But I moved from there at the age of 3. I grew up in Chicago.
Right.
And after, you know, growing up there my whole life and having a relatively thick skin for cold, you get older and your bones start to ache when the cold sets in. Just didn't understand the wisdom anymore of living in a place that got so damn cold that when the wind blew, that your eyes would tear and the tears would freeze on your damn eyelashes, or if you breathe in through your nose hairs freeze. I mean, I just couldn't handle it anymore.
Yeah, that's our life.
There you go.
That's how we have it right here.
More power to you. I can handle it in small doses, and it takes, to be perfectly honest, occasions like this and concerts, you know, that really bring me to places like this and make me feel good about it. Let's put it that way. The nice thing about, you know, Stockholm and Sweden in general, no matter what time of year, is that people are very warm, very open, and very beautiful, and the culture here is wonderful. The architecture is wonderful. The food here is wonderful. Just had a wonderful dinner last night at Prinzer, one of the oldest restaurants, I guess, here, which was classic Swedish cuisine, which was fantastic.
Meatballs, or?
I had one meatball, yes, but it was mostly seafood, which I guess you guys are really well known for here, because the Baltic obviously has all those fruits of the sea for you guys to partake of.
Has the Texas kind of music scene influenced you in a way?
There really isn't much of a Texas music scene.
I mean, Austin.
Yeah, don't believe everything.
All right, okay.
Let me put it to you this way: it's vibrant in the sense that there's always something going on, but it's not as diverse as you might think.
Okay.
It's 100 bands that all sound like a fusion of Mumford and Sons meets, I don't know, the Toadies or something like that, and that's all good. And I like that, or just bluesy kind of jam bands everywhere. There's not a whole lot of hard rock or even say a lot of jazz, or it's kind of a one palette type of thing, which is my biggest critique of its, you know, calling itself the music capital of the world, which I don't see it. But
all right. And a big congrats to the massive success with Sound of Silence.
Thank you.
Did you listen through the whole Simon and Garfunkel back catalog and just like...
No, it wasn't anything
was
like
it about
that.
the boxer or...
No. And as much as I love, what is it, The Graduate? That's the movie that a number of those songs were in. It was actually the tail end of our recording cycle for the Immortalized record. And, you know, typically our habit has been every record to take a song and cover it, something that was, for the most part, pretty much nothing like what we do. We were banging our head against the wall. We couldn't figure out what we wanted to cover anymore. We had kind of spent enough time pulling from the greatest hits of the 80s, and I kind of suggested that we go further back. And it was actually Mike's suggestion, because he had been raised on Simon and Garfunkel, to do The Sound of Silence. And when he suggested that, we all immediately thought, well, we're going to do this the same way that we've done Land of Confusion or Shout or any number of other covers that we've done, more upbeat, more aggressive, more in your face. Typically what we've done to everything, and it was actually Dan's very strong intuition and suggestion that we not do that we keep it ethereal and ambient and orchestral, and we were all very unsure of that because we hadn't done anything like that since the Believe record with Darkness. And I'm like, okay, well, let's give this a shot. And Kevin Churko, our producer, came up with that really beautiful intro piano line that you hear, and it immediately inspired me and us, and we just kept going down that road. And 3 days later, we were comping vocals, and I was listening to the finished comp of everything, and it made me so overwhelmed with emotion that I was literally like fighting back tears. So it was really a wonderful experience for us.
Did you know then that this was going to be a massive hit?
You never know those things. You always hope. Dude, you're freaking me out with the Marilyn Manson. Every time, I can't help but keep looking back over to you. I'm like, oh shit, does he see right through me or something like that? Okay. Anyway.
It's like a Terminator.
Yeah, in a way. Trying to analyze what the next move, all the different lines and possibilities going through his head.
But before we start really the Q&A, but just about Sound of Silence, because even my aunt is like, I love his voice.
Oh.
And I mean, you reached a lot of people.
Thank God. The wonderful thing about a song like this is it definitely opens you up to people that would have never been receptive to you in the first place. And the biggest assumption that people make, and the biggest automatic critique right out of the box, is that, well, since it's like nothing else that you guys have done, which isn't entirely true. Like I said, we did Darkness on the Believe record. How are they not going to get culture shock when they listen to the rest of your catalog? And the overwhelming majority of people who were drawn in by the cover of The Sound of Silence have fallen in love with much of the rest of the catalog. And the cohesive binding element that exists within Disturbed music that I think is attractive to even people that were drawn in by this very laid-back sort of natural approach with the cover, is our intense melodic nature of our music, whether it's a guitar melody or a vocal melody or anything else. It's really always been about really big melodic hooks for us. And so there's definitely plenty of those for people to sink their teeth into throughout our entire catalog. And so people have been invited into the fold through their experience with The Sound of Silence, and they've become permanent fans. It's been truly an amazing thing.
That's great. So, if you have any questions, just raise your hand. First one is right over here.
All right, I'll send you the mic from back here.
Maybe she's so close that you... Oh, there we go.
Speaking of music...
What was your name again?
Jeanette. My name is Jeanette.
Oh boy.
Jeanette. Jeanette.
Nice to meet you, Jeanette.
Nice
Thank
to meet
you
you,
for
David.
being gentle with the pronunciation for me.
Of course, it's a difficult name.
Well, David's difficult too, don't you?
No, it's a nice name. Speaking of music, I'm wondering, of all of your songs, which one is your favorite that you have been doing? Which one is your...
One of the most common questions we get asked, and one of the most impossible ones to answer, because to us, and to me in particular, being the principal lyricist for what we do, the songs are like children to me. And I can't possibly be forced to pick a favorite child.
No.
Each song represents a place in time, or a feeling, or an emotion, or an experience. Yeah. And, the wonderful thing about music is that it so vividly enables you to go back to that emotion, or that experience in that place and time. So I wouldn't trade any of them, and I could not possibly weigh one versus the other. It wouldn't really be fair. So they all have their own significance for me.
That's cool. It's like for me. I can't choose which one my favorite.
I'm happy to hear.
Of your music or his music?
His music. Of course, his music.
Okay.
Yeah.
Next one. Any questions? Yep. Please.
Hi, David. I'm Thomas
Thomas, good, easily pronounced.
Thank you. I just wonder if you have been on the road for many days or months, how do you find time to relax?
Great question. It's tough. Especially this touring cycle, we have beaten the hell out of ourselves. It's been the most rigorous one we've had in maybe a decade. So what we try to do is, unlike what unfortunately a lot of bands who tour, whether they're at home in the States or they're at home in Europe, or if they're vice versa, a lot of bands don't take the time to leave their own hotel rooms. You know, they become a prisoner to life on the road, and they don't do things culturally. They don't experience the city that they're in. They don't go out and sample the culture, the nightlife, the cuisine. They don't get to really experience, you know, what the places that they're actually visiting are really about. And we make that, you know, part of what we do on a regular basis. It also happens to help that all of the members of Disturbed are actually, you know, we like each other. and we like to hang out with each other. So we kind of, you know, hang out as a group and go check things out and try to just do things to keep us, let's call a spade here, sane. Because there's a lot of what we casually and affectionately refer to in this industry as hurry up and wait. And it can drive you absolutely batty. So that's always my suggestion.
Next one. Kör fram lite.
Hi, Bodil, like all the old peoples. I just wonder, how did you came up with your name, Disturbed?
Well, it was a name that I had been saving prior to even auditioning for the other guys back in '96. And when we started to formulate what our sound became, and it wasn't the way that it is right now. In fact, if you listen to some of the recordings of what they were formerly called, they used to call themselves Brawl. And they had a singer by the name of Eric who was singing with them, who was very, very much from the Phil Anselmo school. A lot more brutal and guttural style of vocal delivery, not quite as melodic as I like to try and execute. It took time for us to influence each other. So when I went in there, they were a lot more just aggro, and our combination of working with each other, it became much more rhythmic, it became much more melodic. And as we started to delve into actual subject matter, we started to realize what we wanted to symbolize and what we wanted to stand for. And so why Disturbed? Back then, and probably throughout my entire, you know, childhood and through my high school and whatnot, I was always, as probably comes to no surprise, as the, you know, the odd guy in school.
I know the feelings.
Yeah, you know, always wearing black, always, you know, going down to the boiler room to smoke weed with the other kids, and skipping class, and acing all of my classes. And, you know, I graduated, you know, with honors from high school and into university. I always took it seriously, but I never quite fit 100%. And it is society's nature to judge unnecessarily that which is different, that which stands out from the crowd. Individuality isn't embraced in our society like they say it is. People are expected to be another sheep, follow the flock, follow the in trends, follow what's cool, be a part of a clique. And that always incensed me. And so it was society's tendency to cast out, to ostracize, and to try to wipe out, essentially, all elements that didn't follow the norm, that disturbed us. So that was what we were disturbed by. Make sense?
Yeah, thank you.
Snyggt. Sweet. More questions? Gå bakåt så kommer vi fram sen. Ta det där. Exakt. Stand up.
Yeah, my name is Adele.
Adele.
I'm
Hello.
I'm a suicide victim, so I would like to talk about the video Inside the Fire. Did you ever have
You're
any
freaking
doubts?
me out, Adele, and I'll explain why afterwards.
Sorry.
No, it's okay, go ahead.
Did you have any doubts about releasing the video, and did someone try to stop you?
It's interesting that you asked that question this very morning. Or it's not morning anymore, it's afternoon. Shows you where my head is at. I had reservations. It was a difficult video for me to make. The emotion that you see is very, very real. I broke down several times during making the video. I have no problem admitting that. The reason I'm freaked out by it is, and I can't believe I'm going to share this with you guys, but oh, what the hell. I'm exhausted. Like I said, we've had a very rigorous touring cycle, and the thing that brings me strength are you guys and performing for you. But I've got 4 shows left of this cycle, and I can't wait to get home to my wife and kid, and that's the reality of it. I'm still looking forward to tonight, and I'm still going to kick your asses tonight. But, it's interesting. I haven't gotten a whole lot of sleep, and they say that sleep deprivation can lead to hallucinations. Well, I finally fell back asleep this morning, and I was going to write about it, but this might serve the same purpose. I used to have nightmares about what is depicted in Inside the Fire. My ex, when she took her life, and she took her life because I had broken up with her and she had become codependent on the relationship. She was a heroin addict, and she overdosed. I couldn't maintain the relationship with her because of her habit that I was finding myself being pulled into, and I couldn't continue it because my religious upbringing at the time didn't even allow for me to date, period. I was going to parochial boarding schools, and we weren't even allowed to talk to the opposite sex, let alone date them. So I did everything in secrecy. And she couldn't handle it anymore, and she wanted to expose it. And so I would have these nightmares. Because when she died, I went to the funeral. And her parents were incredibly bitter towards me that I didn't warn them about what was going on. They blamed me for a lot of it. And the vision that came into my mind of this hallucination was me standing over her coffin and having the image of the devil speaking to me, saying that if I would take my own life, that I could still be with her. You know, the passage in the chorus goes, you know, give your soul to me for eternity, release your life to begin another time with her, end your grief with me, there's another way, release your life, take your place inside the fire with her. And that vision was what I woke up to this morning, with my bed soaked in sweat for the first time in, 10 years. So the very fact that you're asking me the question freaks me out pretty badly. Suicide is a horrific thing, and you can't judge people for their choices. You have to simply try to be as supportive as you can. You have to try and nip it in the bud whenever you can. If you know anybody in your lifetime that seems like they're drifting that direction, you really do have to urge them to get help. You have to try and be a support structure for them. People who are very quick to condemn it because of the religious aspect of it or the sin that it may symbolize or whatever are really simplifying it. They don't understand the parameters, and how could they? They're not living it. Stephen King had a very interesting quote that he's very famous for. It's that monsters and ghosts are real. They live inside of us, and sometimes they win. So, stay strong.
Yeah, thanks. Your music helps me. Yes.
I'm happy to hear that.
Thank you. Another one there?
Oh boy, I shut everybody up with that one.
Hi, I'm Louise.
first of all, I think we all...
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. I think that all of us is grateful for you sharing this story, and it touched us all. And I think we all want to say we're sorry for your loss.
I appreciate that.
Yeah. To lighten things up, I would like to ask you if about a drunken story from you or your friends.
A drunk story?
Yeah, crazy things while you've been drunk.
You know, I'm not much of a drinker.
But your friends are?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Tell us about it.
Oh, my God. Let's try and think of one recent. Mike. It's usually Mike. Don't get me wrong. Dan is a very willing and active participant as well, as is John. They all get to do what I am not allowed to do. The life of the frontman, the singer that actually sings for a living, is very different. And I have a burden of responsibility. But this is a great one. They were all out. I don't remember what city it was anymore. Where was it that the slip into the canal happened? Birmingham, England? They were out tearing it up one night, drunk as skunks, all of them. And there are these little canals in Birmingham, not quite like, Denmark or Amsterdam. They're not that big. You could actually jump over them if you have a good enough head start. And John, in all of his, super cardio prowess, decides to, in his drunken stupor, thought it would be a good idea to jump the canal. To which Danny thought, that looks awesome, let me try that too. Tries to jump, and he lands just at the edge on the other side, but doesn't quite balance. And he started doing the whole windmill thing backwards, and eventually went right into the nasty, dirty canal. I mean, just one of those silly things we do when drunk. But we always look back at it and can't help but smile.
Shame you didn't get that on tape.
Tell me about it. Tell me about it. That would have been great.
Thank you.
It only happens in Birmingham.
Actually, I'm sure it happens in many other places too.
Can we have one more before we wrap it up? Over there.
Adam.
Adam.
Yes. First of all, I have a tip for you. I made a song a couple of years ago. If you want to make a cover,
Oh, thank you.
low key, it's a chill song. I think you would
Send it to me.
Yeah, I will. My question is, what hobby do you have outside the music that gives you inspiration to make the awesome stuff that you make?
Hobby. I have several hobbies. I would say that my obsession with just information and news and politics and everything that goes on in this incredibly chaotic and very often horrific world that we live in is more than enough inspiration to last several lifetimes. There's never a dull moment. And sometimes the only way that you can effectively deal with how you feel about some of the things that go on in this world and in our lives is through the incredibly healing therapeutic mode of creating art and making music. It's maybe one of the most effective means of dealing with the trials and tribulations we all have to deal with in our lives. So it's a continuous source of inspiration. On a secondary level, and on a far less deep note, although equally as poignant and powerful, my other brothers in the band continue to inspire me every day. And on another level beyond that, our fan base inspires us every single time we take the stage and makes us want to continue to strive to bigger and greater things.
Yeah.
One last time before we wrap it up.
I have a question.
Yep.
Hi, David.
Hello.
My name is Jenny. I'm Adam's wife.
Hey.
It's nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
I'm a high school teacher, so I know.
Wonderful job.
I read that you studied law. Is that
I
right?
did. Mhm.
So I have a question about education.
Mm.
If you were not a singer or a musician, what would you be?
Well, prior to having the blessing of being able to do this for a living, as you said, I was pre-law. I have a degree in political science, one in philosophy and one in business administration. And I was all set to go to law school. I got accepted to 7 different law schools, took my LSATs, smoked them, and was ready to go. And had a crisis of conscience last minute. And because it was really only criminal defense law that interested me, and I couldn't see myself potentially defending someone that I knew was guilty. I'm a very horrible liar. Horrible. One of the reasons I'll never be a politician. I can't lie to save my life convincingly. So I had a colleague of mine that was involved with a healthcare company that had a facility that was looking for an assistant administrator. And all you needed was a business degree. And you were eligible. So I went to apply, and out of 40 or 50 applicants, I got the job. Inside of the first year, I learned the business from the ground up, went to every department, got my administrator's license within a year, and within 2 years, I was running my own 365-bed skilled nursing facility for about 5 years. That had about 250 staff and 40 doctors, and generating about a $3 million a year profit. Healthcare is a dirty business. It's incredibly difficult trying to decide and budget one's resources to determine how you end up being able to try and heal them. It's even more difficult caring for people and not allowing yourself to get so attached that it kills you every time they leave. So I imagine that I still would be involved in healthcare in some facet, because I really did enjoy helping people, and I was looked at as the cleaner. So I would go into facilities that had violations, troubles, staff that were problematic, that were abusing or doing things at night, and I would clean the place up, and I would take care of all the riffraff and get them done with, and I enjoyed doing that. It gave me satisfaction. But a very difficult thing to continue to do without really eating your heart out. But I imagine I probably would still have been doing it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Good. We're going to wrap it up, David. I think I have to ask you this. This might be as stupid as it can be from my point of view, but I read a couple of years ago. I read something. I think it was on Blabbermouth.
Oh, great!
I know. Do you know where I'm going?
I don't know. There could go any number of directions with that.
But it was said something that sometimes, I don't know if it was kind of metaphoric, that you get hard on stage.
Back in like the early days, we're talking when I was like, oh God, we're talking like Sickness era, even Believe era, when I was young and dumb and full of cum. I said a lot of things.
All right.
And there was some truth to that, because look, let's be honest. When you're on stage, it's a very intoxicating moment. You're very empowered. And even though I had always had, I always did just fine with the ladies. I never had any issue getting laid. But it's a completely different thing when all of a sudden your normal abilities are magnified 100-fold by being up there on stage. And you have these incredibly beautiful women fawning over you, making suggestive faces at you, and touching you, and yeah, what guy wouldn't get a little al dente after that? I mean, it just happens, so,
Very true.
And they turned it into this whole thing, oh, David Draymond walks around on stage with a heart on.
All right.
Like, but that's Blabbermouth, that's what these little clickbait sites do. Anyway. So, yes, there is an element of truth in that, and of course, it gets turned into, I'm always walking around on stage like this, and that's not really the case. So hasn't been that way in years, not to saying that it doesn't still work perfectly fine, because it does, but...
Thank you so much. David Draymond. kick some ass.
Hopefully my hard-on won't get in anybody's way.
Sweet. Thank you.
Hey guys, can we just, we're going to do the photos now, we're going to do them up here. Can we just make sure that you guys come out just out here and we'll just line up on the outside around there.
Slänger ner
Gonna take photos with this camera, okay? You can get them from the radio station later.
Yeah, you'll get all your photos. Really good photos.
Ready?
Thank you.